Hello there. If you've come here, you're probably new to Wayfinder, or at least very early on in Wayfinder and looking for some assistance. Uh, if you are just looking to check out Wayfinder, I do have a better video for that. It'll be down in the description below that just kind of describes the game. But this one's going to be some tips for you brand new Wayfinders joining us in the world, or even if you need a little bit of a refresher from the early access period. So I will be Kairos here today, your instructor. You are probably not a Kairos because he's not unlocked at the start, but you'll actually find out how to get him. It's one of the tips in this video, although you don't have to get him. You can play whoever you want. So we'll dive into it in just a second here. All right, so for our first one that's not inherently obvious, like the game doesn't tell you how to do it. You can find the directions on the Discord and a few other places. Multiplayer. See at the top, we've got party member and find party. So then if you the button will change depending if you're on controller, but right above my name there you can see party settings. It's R1 on this controller. That lets you choose public, friends, private. You can choose to have crossplay on or off. I'm on private because I don't want people hopping in while I'm recording stuff and just wondering what the hell I'm doing. And then the other ones are kind of self-explanatory. This will take you to invite people from your platform. You probably can't see it in the video, but I did open up my PlayStation browser. Find Party, this is the browser. You can see different people doing different stuff. There is, as far as I know, no actual control on this that stops you going into stuff way too high level for you, or vice versa, but that's not really something you necessarily expect. So if you are looking to play with like people around your level as a new player, you probably want to kind of like go down to something like this and change these filters on the left. Up in the top right, you can also see your invite code. That will probably change each time you're playing, to best of my knowledge, and right above there is the one to enter a code. So that's multiplayer. That's just how to play with your friends or even find some randoms to play with, because there is no inherent matchmaking. Like, even if I'm on public and I go load a dungeon, it's not going to stop and matchmake and look for teams. It'll just put me on that server browser, and anyone who wants to can join me. There is also out on the main menu before you actually go into the game. You can just find a party directly here and join them with whatever Wayfinder you were using last as well. So we'll head on to the next tip, which has to do with a little bit of how to keep yourself alive in melee combat. I don't have any pro tips for the guns other than dodge and don't stand in the bad stuff. But melee's got a little bit of a subtle thing that may not be obvious, so we'll go over that. Alright, so the trick with not dying is, besides just not getting hit or conventionally blocking, one thing I'd like to illustrate here is you can block stuff you don't think you would. Like, that's a normal block. You'll see I do the guard counter. You can see I'm also blocking the shots in the background too. Here I managed to block a vertical fireball and also do the guard counter off it. So there's a lot of stuff like that where you can block these attacks. It does take your stamina and your resilience, and you really don't necessarily, especially with huge boss, wipe you out giant zones, to want to stand there because they will just blow your resilience and stun you. But it is an option. You can block more than you'd think, including these giant red circle attacks and like magic things that you wouldn't actually expect to be able to block. One thing is, if multiple stuff is hitting you, you do have to hold block through all the multiples before triggering your guard counter with the sword and shield, or you'll just open yourself up to get hit. And you'll see the same thing here. Even this is iframes and jumps to use get over this boss attack. Attacks you can jump don't seem to have a specific indicator, but you can usually tell if they're like a ground pound slam wave. You can see here too, I'm also using some dodge iframes. Interesting, I've noticed on the iframe, if you actually use the iframe and you don't just completely dodge it, you will see a 0 damage hit, which will still trigger on hit attacks even though you iframed it. That's a cute little bit of information I've noticed. And yeah, you can see I just jump over. That's how you beat that guy, basically. You can jump over that big move and smack him in the face a bunch. Same thing with the daggers over here. Parry has The timing is not super tight, but you can see me parrying that there. That could parry a whole bunch of ridiculous things in later boss fights as well. If you do successfully parry, you will consume stamina, but you will not lose resilience or health, and you will be able the option to counterattack. Nis also has her little jumping dodge thing, which is big iframe there. And here's Grendel with a two-hander. Again, this is just regular blocking, but you can block that. You can see he's taking very little resilience damage and no health damage as a result. He's taking stamina hits down in the bottom left there. Also, keep in mind that yellow bar up above. I'm about to break it with Grendel here. If you break that, it will usually stun the enemy. Not always on some of them, but it will give you. It does reduce their defenses significantly, allowing you to beat tougher bosses who may seem super spongy. This now is Awakening. This is how you give your Wayfinders a final level of upgrades. You'll see it needs Glimmering Spectra down there on the left. That's true for basically every Wayfinder. In a second here, I should open up the ingredient details. You can see the hotkey for that in the bottom left, which will tell you where to get that stuff. That's good. It kind of lies about the Glimmering Spectra, though. You do not need 2 Shadow or 2 Solar mutators active in this case. You can use 1 Shadow and 1 Solar as long as you have 2 mutators, and you will get both at the same time. Depending how you like to split up your farms and which mutator combinations particularly annoy you, double Chaos Solar looking at you, you may find this tip incredibly useful. You may not really care, but it does allow you to multitask your harvesting and mix up the effects a little bit rather than just running 2 mutators of the same type all the time. This will only be available after a certain point in the game. You get each of those slots that I'm using there. You can see I have a third one too. That's way later in the game. And then just down here, we're in that dungeon. I put that mutator on. You'll see I pick up the Glimmering Shadow Spectra and Molten Spectra in the same room from 2 different chests. Just to prove I wasn't lying. Assuming I didn't find an identical room and make a really good match cut. Over here, so if you have your side Wayfinder who hasn't been leveling up through all the main quests, you'll find you've picked up these things called Wayfinder Resonance Caches. If you consume them, it's what it says on the tin, essentially. They're just kind of hidden, and you might not notice that you've piled them up, and they just add experience to another Wayfinder. You'll probably level up your Wayfinder well before you run out of main quests, and then I just say run side quests on your next favorite Wayfinder, in case you really find a boss that yours isn't suited to, or you just want to mix it up for variety's sake. The leftover reward towers from the olden days, if you have access to them, are one of the easiest places to get Wayfinder Resonance Caches, but they do just kind of pop up at the end of dungeons and from treasure chests and stuff as well. In your menu here, you will find world scaling. If you turn world scaling, or difficulty, sorry. Difficulty is totally down to personal taste. It doesn't change your rewards or the levels of enemies or anything like that. It just makes the game slightly harder. I've been playing on heroic the whole time, but other people they told me they've had to turn down the story. That's perfectly fine. You play as you want to. World scaling is the more important one. If you turn that on, the enemy levels will keep up to you, so that essentially content never becomes totally irrelevant. They will always drop some stuff that's useful to you. Like right now, I had world scaling on, so this guy's going to be level 30, because he'd already spawned, because I wasn't that far away. And then you'll see the next set of guys down here that I fight are like level 17, if I remember what I recorded correctly. Obviously, by the time you're level 30, the level 17 guys aren't going to drop anything useful to you. You can still dissolve their stuff for Echo Dust or sell it for gold. There's me jumping over another slam attack as well. But they won't drop they won't drop loot that you actually want at the end of the day. So I highly recommend keeping the world scaling on unless you're really finding you're struggling with a particular dungeon. Then maybe turn it off if it looks like that will drop the level down and make it a little simpler for you. The other thing that's in that menu that I forgot to really capture in the recording is there's one called camera distance, which is how far the camera's from your Wayfinder. If you ever notice your Wayfinder is just completely blocking the screen's view, double check on that setting and make sure it hasn't got knocked down too low by accident. I literally submitted a feedback about Grendel filling up the entire screen, and someone else on the Discord was like, Yeah, check that setting and make sure you haven't set it too low. It was down like 30 or something instead of 80. All right, on to this one. So yeah, this is another one once you get into the Highland Zone, which starts here in Lower Skylight. If you're not looking to fight your way across the entire place, there are, but you may or may not have the fast travels, there are these handy zip lines. This one goes down there. I try and turn left too early. Over to the left, though, you just make a quick, you don't have to do this in one whole jump. You can fall down there. It's perfectly fine. There's another zip line here that goes immediately to the Codex Halls, which is your first kind of dungeon that you need to. If you either are getting lost and can't find it, or you are just don't want to run across and deal with the goblins and stuff on the way. Also, while you're at the Codex Halls, if you go over and jump up here, this is a very common place for Varus to sell, which you can give her some stuff you get from around the Highlands. It's one of the earliest places to get mounts if you do find her there. You will get them later in the main quests too, as well. If you hop just over from the Codex Halls, you'll often also find this Gloom Tear here, which is a public event, a bit of a relic from the MMO days, but it can be a little challenging here because of these worms. They're one of the tougher enemies out here. But you'll defend against 3 waves of gloom creatures, which I should destroy fairly handily here with my in-game level Kairos. That build video should be coming out tomorrow if you're watching this video on release day. And the reason you want this is actually Kairos. Kairos is acquired from the Gloom, and you will open it up in the main quest at one point. You'll have to go there multiple times over the main quest, but this is an early optional way to get in there. And you just see we're taking care of these guys. I thought about cutting this out, but I figured I may as well leave in a little bit of the combat stuff. In case you wanted to see what the sort of end tier of combat looks like a little bit. After you defeat the 3 waves, you can come into this little dungeon. There's a very short platforming challenge. Don't forget, like I did, to pick up those memories so you can learn your Wayfinder's backstories. Be careful on this last one because that one likes to vanish as you're jumping to it if you follow a normal rhythm. You'll have to quickly deal with this guy who's a tiny sort of mini-boss. I'm just going to immediately drop an ult on him, as you can see there. He does pull you in. Just let him pull you, and then either parry or block the next attack or dodge out of it. He's pretty simple, even without my overpowered stuff. In fact, if world scaling wasn't on, he'd probably have died in seconds. Just got some guard counters there. There we go. And after you kill him, you jump across these platforms. You come up here. There's 2 gloom chests. Any of these chests in the gloom areas have a chance, but that is where you get Kairos. He will pop randomly out of one of these style of chests in the gloom. This is just the earliest place you can potentially get them. And then you too can have access to a wizard. Now, what's going on up there, I don't know about. So if you know how to get up there and if it's actually possible, leave a comment below for me. And we'll come back around to that because, yeah, I've never found a way up there, and there's definitely no way you can fly or anything like that. All right, coming out of that gloom tier, this is the rest of that little route. You can run through these tunnels ignoring the worms. And you'll come in this little lake. There's a few enemies, and this guy's kind of a mini boss, this water golem. But if you grab this zip line up here, it will drop you right up in between the the Crossroads Keep and the Ironstone, I believe, if I remember right, Foundry. 2 other major locations where you're constantly picking up side quests and stuff. And they also have a little zip line between them that I'll show you in a second. Do watch out for the Rotbeak here. He likes to come hurtling in from over there if he's close enough. He's not particularly challenging. But yeah, that's the very quick way to zip line out to the Highlands and basically get to all the regular quests early on. If you haven't unlocked the fast travel points, or if you just want to go for a little bit of a trip to see if you can pick up a specter or dig up the little goblin treasure piles. Dropping down below us, there's a cave right behind me. When I drop down, that goes straight into the Bloodworks dungeon area. You won't be able to do anything with that until it comes up in the story, though. But if you drop onto this beach here, the big purple dome is a public event type thing. You'll see these shulks. I think they're called shulks, or something like that. Skirks. I think they're skirks. Anyways, these mermen or fish dudes, they drop some echoes. Their echo is a particularly good melee one, and there's a mini boss one up here somewhere that drops a very good ability power, crit power echo early on for some of the wizard types or magic users. Just in little early place, you can find some good echoes. Regardless, this guy, very much like the boss, you let him pull you in with his ton, but then just immediately block, parry, or dodge after that to avoid the follow-up attack. And that's been our little tour of the Highlands. All right, so we're into looking at the echoes now. So the thing with echoes is they all drop at specific levels, the level of the enemy you killed. For the most part, you aren't going to worry too much about the levels on them. You try and go straight up, essentially. You can see the sword options. I've changed them to levels. Eventually, you will want to get the level 30 ones. Even like a purple level 28 echo is the same as a green level 30 echo or something like that. So don't worry about the rarity too much until you get up to the level 30 stuff. And you can kind of see them going through the different echo types. There are attack type echoes, which give you crit, your damage stats, weapon power, crit rating, the break power, ability power. These guard types give you max health, resilience, and the 2 defense stats. In a minute here, because when I recorded this, I apparently really thought I talked a lot slower than I did. There's also balance types. Balance types take 1 stat from each. So depending if you want your build to be a super tank or a glass cannon or in between. And then cross types are basically balance types, but usually better. They tend to drop from mini boss type enemies. You can see there's a lot of unique names and stuff rather than just goblin type thing going on. They do also tend to take more capacity though, so it's a bit of, if you're struggling for capacity, it's kind of an either or situation. You have to pick and choose. There's another echo type that I will talk about later as well. These are accessories. Much like echoes, you're usually going to be just going for the highest level ones as you go up, but do kind of watch the stats on them because you can end up making yourself a very, where you have no defense or you're no health or no damage. You'll see those little slots on them, the swords and the shields. That's the corresponding to the echo types that they can equip. If you notice you are if you notice that you have all offense and no defense, double check your accessories. Make sure they're not all like double swords. That's probably the best advice I could give you there. Only at the very extreme end game, and I haven't even necessarily found too much that I'm doing that myself, would you actually care which slots they are on them unless you're hyper min-maxing. One thing you do want to watch is that set bonus once you get to the up and do level 20, level 30, where you can actually get all the artifacts. That set bonus with the 10% in particular will often be more than the actual stats you're getting from the artifact. So watch out for that because there may be something that has crit power and crit rating, but then the set bonus is like ability power. Don't always rely on them just based on the first stat you see, because some of the sets will be very good. You can also see these bone dolls would give you weapon power, then the set bonus would give you even more weapon power if you wanted to go all in on weapon power. Not something you usually do with a Kairos or a Nyx, but that is something you can do with more of the War Masters or the Survivalists, they're called. Or, well, I should say gun and melee weapon users, because a lot of that's based on your weapon rather than your specific Wayfinder. These are artifacts. They drop from bosses. They basically engage a passive when you put them in your house, and you can have up to 2 activated at a time. You can place as many as you want. Just important, not double check occasionally you haven't accidentally turned them off if you decorate your house or push buttons in there a lot or bring randoms in there. And otherwise, don't worry too much about them. I believe I'm about to show you, yeah. If you go to Skylight and warp to the Great Lift, you are introduced to the housing person in the tutorial to my recollection, but she's just over here from that fast travel point. And yeah, you can craft all sorts of stuff for your house, but you'll see the artifacts are specifically purple. So this one would boost my gold, which is not the most useful one because by the time you get to that boss, I've never had less than 500,000 gold, no matter what I did. But hey, it's there. If you're crafting potions or something, you might use more of it. I don't know. Speaking of potions, there they are. You get your health flask, which is basically an Estus flask. You get that many of them per mission. You can refill them out, a little special thing that shows up occasionally, but they are reset themselves. Phoenix oil is one of the more powerful ones, especially if you're playing solo, because if you die, you can come back to life immediately with lower HP instead of having to respawn or restart the entire dungeon or boss encounter or otherwise forfeit your tries. The other one there is basically, I'd almost consider that a non-negotiable slot. The other one there is basically there's different buffs you can get. I get so many of these drop constantly that I've never felt the need to craft them, but you can craft them at a merchant in town as well. Over on the right, when you push the stat focus button, whatever that may be, it'll be in the bottom right. You can look over those. You'll get a little more information on exactly what they do. Same thing with the gear stats. If you push the button indicated in the bottom right, you can see exactly what stats you're getting from your gear, which may be very helpful in identifying why you're missing some very low stats. If you've equipped, a level 5 accessory instead of a level 31 or something like that, once you get to that point. Moving on in the build stuff, this is the Echoes again. Again, don't agonize. Don't even start trying to really agonize over the Echoes until you start getting up to level 30 stuff. Honestly, I wouldn't even necessarily recommend, unless you find you're struggling, even upgrading the Echoes to level 30. Upgrading doesn't make them use more capacity or anything, but it does use the resources. You get some of them back when you dust the Echo, that's the term. You'll see I'm dusting these Hobgoblin Echoes because I already have one at the top there, and you can only equip one of the same monster's Echo. Even if you have a purple, a blue, and a green one, you can only equip one of them. So your eventual super completionist target would be to have a level 30 purple Echo for every monster. You won't need anything close to that to make a quality build, but that's your completionism aspect. I'm going to try not to sneeze while I show you me dusting a bunch of Echoes. I have failed at trying not to sneeze, but at least I managed to hit the mute switch. So yeah, we got your lower level. When you get lower level or same level but duplicates of an Echo, you only need to keep one copy of each. There's an option to sort by name, which makes it very easy to tell which ones you want to grab. This is your Rush Echoes. I didn't talk about them earlier, but They level up, but they don't get more powerful. They reduce their capacity usage. Same with their rarity, as far as I know, except for the ones that say mythic, which are technically speaking a separate echo. So making better versions of them reduces your capacity if that's a concern, but it doesn't actually improve the power of the echo. These are basically passives. On a normal character, you get a passive slot, and on a weapon, you get a passive slot. On a heroic character, which is only Nyx or Kairos, you get 2 of these passive slots. Nis is available from Mythic Hunts. Heroic Kairos is only available to founders, and as a founder, I actually want them to give them to everyone somehow. Like add him to the Mythic shop. If Airship Syndicate is here and I have any kind of power over their decisions watching, I'm a founder. I don't care. Let people get heroic Kairos. It's just silly that I get this extra. This is like the one spot I get this tiny little extra power boost. All right, moving on to Affinity. This is a whole bunch of numbers. If you're a new player, don't really care about it. I don't care about it, and I'm not a new player. I'm sure maybe I should at some point. Instead, at the top, you'll see the option to switch to perks. Switch over to perks and figure out which perks you want rather than trying to play this little like calculator game. That will do you a lot more work and that has a lot more effect on your build and how you play at the end of the day. The other ones will basically sort themselves out, essentially. You can see here I've got options that generate arcane fragments and decrease damage after I use arcane fragments. I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts at what Kairos does, but basically it's a fairly significant part of my tanking build. I have the same options for a lot of different characters too. This is the talent tree. Most of the talent tree is tiny little inconsequential skill boosts. If you played Path of Exile, you're probably well familiar with the idea. If you haven't played Path of Exile, don't worry. If you've all played, if for both cases, it's not nearly as complex either. But yeah, one thing to watch in here is stuff like this damage node I'm highlighting that sounds really, really good. 25% of your magic defense being dealt to your attacker would be like 3,000 damage every time I'm hit. Stats in Wayfinder are not always accurate to what they say. There has been feedback sent to them by myself and many others on Discord about trying to fix these node descriptions, but your health is the real number, your resilience is half of what's shown. Every other stat is showing like it's 10 times higher than it actually is for these calculations. That's done to make the stats kind of have the similar values, like 3,000s and 5,000s, but it is important when you're picking talents to know that you're not going to get that full. It might only be working on like 1/10 of your ability power or magic defense or crit power. In here, you're mostly, the green nodes give you bonus echo slots, or bonus echo capacity. I'm sorry, these little triangles give you ×2 benefits, so they're fairly important. But the big one you want to chase down is these orange nodes, because these can give you some fairly powerful passives, even with that one actually technically not giving me as much as it seems like it should. That's building up those damage shields while you're constantly using abilities, for instance, is quite good. The big orange ones you can only have one of, so if you are going to chase those, try and pick it early so you don't have to respec the entire tree too often, which is a time sink. It doesn't cost you anything, but I don't particularly like the prime nodes because they're all kind of conditional or building up stacks for like short-term buffs. I prefer the smaller orange ones, but that's just down to personal preference at the end of the day. The ones behind the big orange ones you may want to get if they're relevant to you because they do add an extra echo slot to your character. You can see that's my defense one. So with it, if I didn't have that point in the skill tree, I'd have 400 less health, which would be somewhat bad for a tank. Yeah, that's just me. That's the respec. You can see that one doesn't cost anything. Respecing this refunds you all the materials you've spent on this, but does charge you a small amount of gold. your abilities in here can also be respected. This screen is also important. This defines your build, essentially. This is the biggest one to look at and choose beforehand, is that ability screen, because you'll pick the different versions. Oh, where am I going? Oh, this is basically your account rank, kind of a holdover from when it was an MMO live service thing. No matter what you do, you will passively get experience towards this and unlock a bunch of passive buffs that you can see me highlighting there. The ability part that I went much faster than I was expecting through. You choose, there's different tiers of you can unlock of your abilities. Some of them will drastically change your abilities, letting you deal more damage or making enemies take more damage. I have one on Kairos that heals me. That's a fairly common one. The characters that aren't healers have to unlock their healing powers using ability points. And yeah, you can see that when you get weapon masteries are different for depending on your Wayfinder's class. Arcanists get a lot of different things using their ability power to passively buff their guns or swords, as the case may be. Okay, I did come back around to abilities. I was like, what was wrong with me there? So yeah, you can see on my Savage Rakes here, which is normally just an offensive attack for Kairos, when I buffed up to level 3, that's how I'm getting the healing that you saw in the earlier battle, where I was getting like 1,000 hit points back every time I hit enemies with these things. Safe and Radiance, same idea. There's different options you can get there. It's giving me the arcane fragments, which is related to my damage shields and innovation orbs and a bunch of other stuff that I'm not going to go. I'll go into in the Kairos build video rather than this one. You can also see the ability of your currently equipped weapon there. Mine makes damage shields for me and the party. As I said, it's a tank build, so I have all these neat little effects. Up at the top, your armor does give you stats. You will just kind of find armor as you go on. If you really want, if you're really feeling the need to grind a specific set, I just suggest looking up a wiki or something. It'll be easier to try and remember me telling you where it is in the video. And I don't honestly know where they all came from. One thing is, no matter what armor you've equipped, once you pick it up, you will unlock it as a transmog, and you can use it in the style menu here. Also, once you awaken your character, I believe it is, you'll get a different persona available for them as well. And yeah, you can see I could choose basically any Kairos look out of all these different options I've picked up. There are actually more style options than there are pieces of armor as well. Same applies for weapons. You'll find some just weapon skins by themselves or in different merchants for stuff easily earnable in game. I have the Phalanx sword equipped, or no, Legacy, which is right next to this Rotted Oath skin, but I'm using the Rotted Oath skin. All these are fully colorable. You unlock the dyes by either leveling up or awakening your Wayfinder, and through a few other different options in the game, but there's no microtransactions of any kind. Mounts, you will acquire them in the loading screens we're doing first. You get loading screens in a few different ways. I just leave mine set to random. Mounts, you will get them in the main quest. You get the regular Strider, the Highland Strider from the main quest. Other ones you can find the merchant in dungeons. You get archaic bones and things like that in the dungeons by doing the different side objectives that pop up, and you can trade them for mounts and colors and other loading screens and stuff like that. Same thing with the job board in town. All right. Not sure what I was waiting for there. So this is back at the Gloom Gate. Okay, yeah. So yeah, once you find a dungeon, it just shows up at the Gloom Gate. You don't have to walk out to the dungeon through the open world zone every time unless you really want to. Obviously, you can farm echoes and materials if you go across the Highlands or the other ones, but most of your stuff's going to be accessed from that gloom gate as needed. Except for at the very end of the game, I'll just showing you this is a little bit of a teaser essentially. You will access mythic hunts through this gate that shows up instead. Mythic hunts include stronger, but not particularly different versions of most of the bosses you've already fought. There are also a few unique bosses to the mythic hunts as well. They award you mythic echoes, which are way more powerful than the regular forms, mythic currency, and different things you can unlock in a store, including heroicness. So if you have liked and enjoyed this video and found any of these tips useful, please leave a like. Drop a subscribe or comment. We should have some Wayfinders content coming out pretty fast. There's a Kairos build as well. Oh. Ah, yes, this was at the end. I almost forgot it. This is your apartment. You can fast travel to it or just do that quick little cut up above Wolf to walk to it. Your apartment may seem like just a frivolous cosmetic thing, but make sure to pet your dog. You can pet the dog in Wayfinder, which is very important. But yeah, so a lot of this you can just throw your decorations around and decorate the place up, but it won't actually do anything important. However, besides the artifacts that we discussed earlier, there are a few trophy items you can pick up, which once a day will let you do different things. That one gives you 1 skeleton key a day. This one lets you turn a imbuement into 2 other random imbuments once per day, which can even it out if you've got weird RNG going on with yours. One of the ones over here gives me a trickster coin. The other one just gives me for some extra imbuments. I don't know why these are once a day. I assume it's just kind of a leftover from the MMO code, but handy thing to do is after your day's adventuring, stop at your house, pet your dog, drop off any new furniture you picked up in the dungeons, and collect all your various freebies as well. And that will pretty much do it for the video. As I was saying before, if you have found this informative and useful, drop a like, leave a comment with any additional questions should you have any, or other tips you might want to offer to any other players who are viewing this video. This is just me throwing down some decorations. And we will see about making a follow-up video for that potentially if there is interest. Also, subscribe for more Wayfinder content. We should have my Kairos build is going to be in a video coming out probably tomorrow from when this video releases, or 2 days off. There's an ongoing Let's Play as well. That's already been recorded to the end of early access, and I should start updating with new episodes shortly after launch. And hopefully we'll see you then. You can also check out the links down below the video. They'll have my intro video to Wayfinder for people who haven't played it at all as well. And you can also find stuff like watching live on Twitch for when we're playing there, or the Discord. The Discord is in the link tree because of the robot CAPTCHA barrier. But we're happy to help you out there as well. And hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And I'm just going to see if I can jump off into this lake here. Catch you later.